All right, so this video is going to go over my setup of my Creality Falcon2 Pro 40 watt. Real quick, there's a set of chapter markers down below or off to the side if you want to check that out. Maybe there's a link or a portion of this video you want to jump ahead. I'm going to talk quite a bit. So I'm just going to talk about this from top to bottom. But first, when I bought this off of Creality's website, it came with the air assist pump, the 1.6 watt laser, and this is the 40 watt version. And that's it. I didn't get any of the material packages because I'd be purchasing my own materials for cutting. So I got that like around Christmas. I got a nice deal on that. So I'm gonna just talk about the things I've added and modded from top to bottom. So on top here, you can see I've got a laptop. This is an old, like 10-year-old laptop running Lightburn. I did buy the license for $100. As far as cutting software goes, it's one of the standard ones out there to use with this laser. And having it on a laptop right here where I'm doing the work is amazing. You can pick up an old laptop. It just needs to run Windows 11 and doesn't need to do any heavy lifting. It doesn't need to be a powerful laptop. But I have it here when I'm doing my work, and making this stand has been nice. So it's not pushing on this top material or anything. Nice stable surface to work.
So Lightburn allows you with a single license copy to install it on up to 3 machines. So I have it running on my laptop in my garage. I have it running on my PC upstairs. And what I do is on my laptop, my working directory there where I have all my files, I have that shared on my network so I can see it from my PC upstairs. So I'll do all the heavy lifting on my PC upstairs, where it's comfortable to sit there for a while and get everything lined up and designed, save it to that directory on my laptop. Then I can walk down there and just fire it up on my cutter and go from there.
And all these designs for these 3D printed parts, they're linked down below in a printables link. I've got that put together in a collection. Off to the side here, I've got my air assist pump down here, 3D printed cable management brackets just to keep some of this cable out of the way. Down below here, I do have a board, and you can see that my printer doesn't fit the width of this shelf here. So I've got this board and it's level, so this entire chassis is not being tweaked one way or the other or leaning off the front and bending. I wanted to have a square surface or a true surface, truly flat surface for it to sit on, so it's not tweaking the laser cutter. Coming around to the front here, I do have a little 3D printed holder for this gauge. It's just a little kind of like a hook surface it sits in, so that's there, ready to go. I did add these little 90-degree USB-C connectors. It makes it so the cables aren't sticking out. Same up here with the camera, less chance of bumping those and breaking them. I've got more cable management here to take these connections, the USB connections, all the way to the back to connect to the laptop. And then here I've got a Wyze V3 camera, so I can keep an eye on this when I'm away from it. I know the Creality manual tells you not to step away, but I haven't had problems with it on longer cuts, and if I need to peek at it, this just sits in there. I didn't put this inside the enclosure because I didn't want to build up on the lens with smoke and stuff over time, but this works out great. Coming back here, I've got my exhaust hose. I did move this from the other side, and there is a gray line in there. You can't really make it out in the video too well. Maybe you can. That's a custom cut gasket to help seal that up. I found that most of the smoke that was leaking out of this enclosure is obviously it's this one fan exhausting everything out, and that's under a lot of pressure. So if there's any gap here, you're going to get smoke coming out. Seal this area up to get into the hose, and you'll be smoke free in the area that you're printing, as long as this goes to an outside wall or vent, or if you're using the Creality filter. But this system worked great to get this out through my side door in my garage. I've got a port I designed and printed that goes outside. This has some magnets on it, so I could stick it on there and then put the hose on there, so that's sending everything outside. That works out great. All right, I think that's everything on the outside of the printer. So on the inside of the printer, okay, so I did design this laser holder. There's a lot of different ones on printables, but I didn't care for them. I wanted one with a switch. I wanted it off to the side so this wouldn't bump when this comes up all the way to the front. It doesn't collide here. This is an offset laser, and in Lightburn you could tell it how far that is offset from the middle of the laser here. So you could tell it where you want to line it up, and this makes it incredibly easy to line up your laser on your material where you're going to cut and then cut it. instead of guessing maybe where the middle of this is. If you have to be a little more precise with like an ornament or something, this works really well. A couple other things I had to do. One, this side of the gantry was actually a tooth too far back on the belt, so it was actually tweaked this way. So I had to bring this forward, otherwise I wasn't cutting square. I've got instructions for that in that printables link below on how to fix and square that gantry. The other thing I did was I put a tile in the bottom here. Can't see it, it's under this this cutting honeycomb, but that prevents me from cutting into the bottom of the drawer. When I first got my printer, I put a lot of marks down there because I was cutting through with too much power when I was learning. So having that tile down there is a consumable that I can burn up and not affect the drawer. I feel like that was a smart move. And then I've got this honeycomb, which has been great for extracting smoke and stuff out from under whatever you're cutting. You got the slats you can put across, but I like this as a little more stable surface that doesn't shift around. It stays put. I've got these magnetic hold downs I designed. Again, those are on the printable site. And those are the heights of the material that they'll sit on, because those steps are 1 to 4 millimeters high for the material. These work really great to hold stuff in place on this metallic surface when you're cutting stuff. I did put, you can see this is a vent right here. This actually goes down to a hole I cut in the bottom drawer, and this allows fresh air to come in at this point, which draws air across the cutting area and then out that back fan. So that was a nice addition. I find that smoke extracts quicker, and it still maintains a negative pressure inside this cutter. So when I have that hose connected to my door, I'm not smelling any smoke in this area. Even if this thing is filled with smoke, everything's getting exhausted outside, which is ideal, because it can get pretty smoky in that cutter if you're doing longer cuts or engravings. So that was a nice thing to do. Another thing I had to fix, again, I don't want to dig on this cutter. I would buy it again if I needed to get a laser cutter. I'm really happy with it. But this cutting head was actually tweaked back that way about a couple millimeters, so it was actually cutting stuff at an angle. So if you're cutting deeper material, and you wouldn't have a square edge cut because the laser's at an angle, would be tapered. So to correct that, I've got a guide on the printable site, but I actually added really thin shims, 0.1 millimeter, 7 of them, to the bottom mounting bolt for the wheel that actually rides on this bottom rail, and that brought it forward to square. So when I put my 90-degree in there like this, it sits square. Before though, I had a gap down here, and so adding those shims swung the bottom out and made it cut square again. Highly recommend checking that out. And that's about all I can think of for how I set this up. Again, I've been really happy with this. If I had the money, I'd probably go CO2, but I'm not looking at spending $3,000 on something for something I cut with on occasion for projects and whatnot. But as far as things go with this 40 watt, I've barely used 50% of that power for the majority of my cuts. They're on 15 and 10% cuts. You play with the speeds too, but I really feel that this laser has done great for me for all the projects I've used so far. So yeah, can't really think of anything else to suggest. I hope this video was useful, and happy cutting.